Hey guys, my name is Matt Downs. I'm a professional sports bettor, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I made over $11,000 in the month of October. Now, if you're watching this channel for the very first time, you'll learn that I'm not like these other YouTube channels. I don't go on these 10-0 runs, right? I don't tweet about it. I don't go on and post prize picks, locks, all I simply do is I follow raw, authentic data within the industry, data within the sports books, and I pick off stale data at other sports books, right? The reality is that this industry is growing tremendously, right? New sports books are coming out every single day. It feels like every single week at least. And what you do is you look at these new sports books and you seize new opportunities, right? You have your prize picks of the world, your underdogs, your FanDuels, your DraftKings. But because this industry is growing so rapidly, you're getting these new exchanges, these new DFS apps. And the reality of the situation is with every new DFS app, with every new sports book, there's a lot more newer opportunities for you to take advantage of. See, unlike the stock market where you can simply just buy one specific price for one specific stock, you can buy different prices for different player props, for different money lines. Every single sports book is offering many, many different lines, which creates many different opportunities for you to become a profitable sports bettor. And as you guys can see, this is a publicly tracked Pickett. You can follow me on Pickett, C Matt Downs. And the way that this works is I upload every single sports book that I have bets at. Now, I'm personally in Florida, so I only have access to the exchanges like Novig, like ProfitX, Hard Rock Sportsbook, Prize Picks, and Underdog, and Epic. But as you guys can see, even despite starting about halfway through the month, I was still able to make $11,000 in net profit. And again, if you guys stay to the very end of this video, I want to prove to you guys that this is a very possible thing for you guys to do. And I want to preface this whole video with just simply saying the fact that this is not simple, right? This is actually pretty tough to do. But if you guys do actually listen to what I'm saying in this video and you put your head down and you actually take advantage of every single sports book that is legal within your state, then you too can also make side income. And honestly, you can make full-time income if you devote enough hours into this. Now, as I said before, the number one thing you must do, regardless of the state that you're in, is find as many different opportunities to take advantage of within your state. That's legal, of course, right? So for instance, I used my exact example is Florida. They're not, a bad state to be taking advantage of different sports books, but they definitely are regulated, right? There's only one major sports book in Florida, and that is Hard Rock. And you'll see Hard Rock's not pictured because I actually don't use them as much anymore. Hard Rock, I actually took for about $20,000 to $21,000 last year. So they limited me to pennies, right? So I actually don't use them as much because the opportunity to make money on Hard Rock is not as lucrative as some of these other sports books that I currently have access to. As you guys can see, made $9,600 on Novig, which is a sports exchange. Prize Picks made $460. Just utilizing the promos. Dabble, I lost a little bit. Made actually a lot more in the previous 5 days than I've ever made at Dabble. ProfitX took them for $1,700. Flipped down just a little bit. But as you guys can see, well diversified, even with the 5 books that I have access to here in Florida, right? Each sports book is completely different on the surface, right? You have your fantasy apps, you have your actual sports books, you have your exchanges, like you can call them anything, right? But the ability to place a wager at some sort of sports app is what I'm referring to as a sports book in this video. They all look and feel a little bit different, but they all offer the same exact lines, right? Just at different prices, whether that be for a simple money line, player prop. And the whole strategy that I utilize is something called plus EV betting. And that's exactly what I described earlier in the video, where you can take advantage of different price points for the exact same type of market, the exact same type of player prop, whatever you decide to bet on at these different sports books. Now, for the next part of this video, I'm actually going to walk through a couple examples, and I ironically have a really good example to show you this morning of an actual bet that I found, again, this morning on a sports book called ProfitX. Now, this is a betting exchange, which means it's 100% peer-to-peer. In other words, it's not the house taking your money. You're not actually betting against a sports book. You're betting against other peers. But the main reason I like these exchanges is because there's no limits. You can literally bet as much as you want or as little as you want against other peers. Whereas a sports book, if you start winning too much, you get limited, right? As I stated on Hard Rock. So as you guys can see here in front of me, I have Hard Rock pulled up. The Capitals was the exact bet that I hit on ProfitX at a plus 100 price tag. So if you guys look down here, the second slip that I hit, plus 100 at $500, which means for every $500 that I bet, I win an additional $500 if the Capitals win, right? Very simple. I double up my money, which also means that the person I was accepting this bet from priced this as a literal 50-50 bet. However, if you guys look here on the screen on Hard Rock, you can see that the Capitals and the Penguins matchup are actually priced a little bit differently in Hard Rock. You have a minus 115 for the Capitals to win and the Penguins for minus 105. Now, before moving on to the next part of the video, I really do want you guys to understand the core concept of what American odds even imply, right? If you don't understand how to read sportsbooks lines, then none of this is going to make sense to you. But basically, in a nutshell, American odds simply show the true percent odds for a team to win, for a player prop to hit, through something called devigging, or taking out the true odds of something to hit. So as you guys can see here, minus 115, the more minus a number is, the more favored they are. So minus 115 is higher than the minus 105 number on the Penguin side, which means that Hard Rock, based on all the algorithms that they're running, because again, their whole purpose here as a sportsbook is to beat their sports bettors, they feel confident enough to set a line of minus 115 for the Capitals and minus 105 for the Penguins. So as you guys can see here, if I put down $500 on the Capitals to win at Hard Rock, I'd be not returning another additional $500. I'd be returning $934 as opposed to the $500 that I'd be returning on ProfitX. And you actually can't see that. I have to move over here. If you guys look on the screen now, you can see the $500 into the $934. So there is the example. And given this example, you guys can see that the payout is pretty significantly worse on Hard Rock than it would be on ProfitX if I hit this exact same bet across the two different sports books. And that is the edge right there. Is the payout worth it to the actual percent odds for something to hit on a sportsbook? Now, I'm simply looking at one sportsbook to compare. Imagine you had a FanDuel, a DraftKings, a BetMGM, Pinnacle. Imagine you had all these different sports books and they all agreed with a specific price. For the sake of simplicity, let's just call it, hey, every single sportsbook in the industry agrees with a minus 115 price on the Capitals and minus 105 on the Penguins. You can see here that given that information, every single sportsbook is like, hey, I actually think the Capitals are slightly favored to beat the Penguins. Now, you guys can see here, because I bet this on ProfitX at the plus 100 odds, I'm literally betting this at a 50% ROI or a 50% chance, right? So for every $500 that I put down, I'm going to double up my money if this team wins. However, this team has a greater than 50% chance to actually win. Now, let's take it a step further. Imagine you're flipping a coin, right? Let's call it a weighted coin because indeed, the Capitals are favored to actually win this according to Hard Rock Sportsbook. Imagine I'm flipping a coin, let's call it 1,000 times, right? And because of these odds, let's call it 51%. We have the Capitals to win 51% of the time. You flip that coin enough times, and I'm betting $500 every single time on the Capitals, but I'm returning a double up $500 every single time that lands on the weighted side at 51%. You guys can see that given that information, I'm going to win money in the long term. But now let's say that I'm flipping that coin again, that weighted coin for the Capitals win 51% of the time, but I'm losing, according to the price that I'm getting at Hard Rock, an additional like $65.22 for every single time I'm placing this comparatively to where if I was placing it on ProfitX and getting that $500 price tag, right? So the odds 1000% matter. And this added edge that the sportsbooks are setting up is something called VIG or juice. And I have other videos on the channel where I go over in depth what this looks like. But as you guys can see here, they are not pricing this outcome at a 50-50 chance. They're throwing in what I just called it, VIG or juice. And that's exactly how the sportsbooks beat their sports bettors over the long term. Now, does this actually mean that the Capitals are going to win tonight? Absolutely not. I could lose this bet and lose $500. But you guys can see here that I have a small edge. Now, imagine taking those small edges across many different bets, right? And that's called your compounding edge. And to that point, that's exactly what I do. Whenever I find an edge, whenever there's a line discrepancy that makes it a profitable plus EV bet, I always take it. No questions asked, right? At whatever sportsbook that may be, as long as I have access to it. And here in front of you, you guys will see a legitimate screenshot a couple days ago. I bet 111 bets. And honestly, that's not even that much. If you actually want to dedicate this to a full-time job and actually make money sports betting, 100 bets is completely doable. It's a 100% worth it as long as you have access to find those plus EV bets. And as you can see here, I also wagered $12,000, and I understand that a majority of people can't wager that day in and day out, but highly recommend that even if you're a $5 unit bettor, you get in as many different bets as you can. The more bets you make, the more opportunities you'll find, and the higher probability that you'll come out profitable in the long term. So then the question becomes, how do you actually find these profitable sports bets like the Capitals sports bet that I made earlier today? And the answer isn't the fact that I go through every single sports book and I manually compare lines. That would be the worst way to go about this, because the reality is you can't compare sports books lines that quickly. At least nowadays you can't, and quickly find an edge, and then also have the ability to take advantage of that sports bet, right? What I'm using is something called a plus EV optimizer, an AI tool, whatever, market scanner, whatever you want to call it, right? And the whole point of a tool like this is that it directly compares every single player prop, every single market that it possibly has access to across the entire market to identify those discrepancies that we were referring to earlier in the video. Now, because I'm on the topic of Hard Rock, I'll show you guys a bunch of Hard Rock profitable plays, and I'll actually put this in motion for you guys and show you some examples on what I'm talking about. So tonight we actually have the Raiders playing Denver, and one of the top plays happens to be Michael Mayer, over 2.5 receptions on Hard Rock, being offered at the price tag of plus 115. Now, based on everything I've said in this video, this should be pretty straightforward at this point. But more importantly, I want to show you what this tool does. It directly compares across the entire market the exact same player prop at the exact same projection, and whether it's an over or an under. And as you can see here on Hard Rock, plus 115, completely different from the rest of the market. As you can see here on FanDuel, minus 118, as we were referred to earlier, the more minus the number, the more favored it is. At minus 118, I would assume that the juice on the other side is closer to like minus 110. So they're actually favoring the over here on a very sharp sports book like FanDuel, but on Hard Rock, you can get this at plus money, a completely different price tag, right? And they're not the only book offering it at minus money. It's literally every single sports book, with maybe the exception here of ProfitX. But as you can see here, pretty much every single sports book agrees with this price range, right? For me, if I was looking at this and I actually wanted to use Hard Rock, sportsbook that I'm heavily limited on, I would be hitting this. This would be a no-brainer plus EV play. And I would take this and then move on to the next play. Now, again, I'm not looking at player statistics. I'm not looking at the last 5 history. I'm not looking at anything. He could go out and he could get injured in the first quarter and this could hit the under. But I know I can go to sleep at night. And I know for a fact that I made a profitable sports bet based on the actual price that's being offered in the market. Based on the entire sportsbook market, this has about a coin flip chance to hit it, 50.1% chance to be exact. But I'm getting a price tag for every $100 that I bet, $115 in return. Now imagine I flip this 1,000 times, my ROI would be 15%, right? Because I get an additional $15 for every single time that I'm flipping that coin. Now, plus EV betting can literally be this easy. This is the tool that I'm using. The tool I'll go ahead and link in the description, but it's Upside and it's $40 a month. And again, if you're able to devote any time of sports betting throughout the day to be able to do this, whether it's a couple hours a day, you work from home, if you're able to do a 4-hour day, sports betting day, this can reap rewards. And I just showed you a realistic scenario where I made $10,000, $11,000 plus dollars in one single month. And I'm not even doing this full time. I'd say I devote about 2 to 4 hours a day actually sports betting. And again, I'm in a pretty mediocre state when it comes to sports betting. So yeah, hopefully this was a very simple, straightforward video. Again, this is the only strategy that I use to sports bet. I simply plus EV bet, I market compare, and I use a market scanner like Upside.tools, one of the cheapest in the market. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them down in the comment section. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day.